Good morning to our attendees on the line. Thank you so much for joining us. It is 10:01. I think we're just going to give it 1 or 2 more minutes to see if we've got more people joining us. In the meantime, please do sit back, enjoy the session. There's still time for you to grab something to drink. We're just quickly navigating the slides to make sure that it is moving, but please do feel free. We're going to start maybe in the next minute or two, just to allow more attendees to join. Thank you so much for being on the line. It is 10:03. I think we should maybe start with our session just to be mindful of the time. It's a beautiful Friday morning. Good morning to all of our attendees. Thank you so much for joining us. Maria, my colleague and my co-presenter, thank you so much for being on the line. Good morning.
Good morning, Leanna. Good morning to everybody that's on the call. It is a Friday. Finally, I'm looking forward to this Friday. It's been a very busy week, but we like busy. Busy is good. I'm so glad that I was invited to this session. I'm looking forward to it, Leanna. Thank you for having me.
Awesome, Maria. And of course, by means of introduction, I know that you might have been in our sessions before. We always introduce ourselves as being financial specialists and being in the wellness industry for many, many years. But this morning, we're going to say, well, we're introducing ourselves as mothers. I've got two beautiful daughters. My oldest daughter is almost 22. My baby is turning 18 in 2 weeks' time. And of course, been loving this journey with them and the different life stages that we've been going through. Maria, you're a proud mommy too. What does your family unit look like?
I am much younger than yours. I always, when I chat to you, I say, "Oh, it doesn't get better." And you say it is better, it gets better, but the problems don't go away. I've got a 13-year-old teenage boy, and I've got a 9-year-old girl. So I also have like my pair, like Liana, but it has been very, very interesting. So it is very nice to come onto a session and kind of wear the financial specialist and mommy hat together all in one, so that we can have very nice, very honest conversations and just kind of sort of prepare each other. Like I said, I learn from Deanna all the time. When she said her first is 22, I thought, what? That's crazy business, but yeah, she is 22. So we are definitely looking forward to share with you guys. Please keep an open mind in this session. Share with us. We've got a Q&A open where you can write your questions. You can share comments in there. If you do have access to the chat, you can use that as well, depending on how your teams are set up. Any of the platforms that allow you to interact with us, I'm very, very happy that you interact with us as well. Yeah.
Awesome, Maria. Thank you so much for sharing that insight with us. We want you to really enjoy, sit back in this particular session. Like Maria said, if you've got your questions, we will be keeping an eye on the Q&A. We have already posted in the Q&A our Menti polling link, and I'm going to ask Maria just throughout the session, if you've maybe missed it, just to repost that. And then, of course, just as a reminder, right at the beginning, as you are faced maybe with different decisions that you need to make around your finances going into this new life stage, please remember that you can access support through the LIRA program. Financial coaching is completely confidential. It's at no cost to you. And we are really here to help you, whether it is virtually, telephonically. You can simply scan the QR code, which is displayed on the screen right now. And we will also be posting a contact me link that you can click on. And when you click on that link, your information is completely confidential. It will come through to our financial coaching booking agents. They'll reach out to you and set up your individual financial coaching session. But I would love to start our session just by gathering a little bit of insight from our participants. Which stage are you currently in? Are you expecting? Maybe you're already a new parent, or maybe you're growing your family. There's already kids in that unit and you are now moving a little bit forward. So if you're wondering how you can participate, please simply scan the QR code. You can click on the link, which is in the Q&A and in the chat function. And of course, that will just give us an indication. Oh, Maria, it's so wonderful to be in the session and to see people growing their families, new parents. Congratulations. That's wonderful. We've got 3 of our participants saying expecting. How lovely is that? I'm sure you remember those days, Maria, expecting and that new parent and growing the family.
Yeah, I remember those days. I think, a lot of people also focus on those days being wonderful and being all of that stuff. But I remember they were accompanied with like plans and logistics and, a little bit of worry here and there. And it did help to just have people you could just chat to, ask questions and, get the answers there. It makes it easier for you to enjoy the journey. So I definitely remember that time there. Do you remember it, taking into account that it was the last one was what, 18?
I do. It feels like just the other day, and with her birthday coming up, I always reflect back what was from that minute that I found out that I was expecting and then going through that journey. I remember the day going to the hospital. I even remember what clothes I had on and what the planning was. It was just absolutely magical. I really enjoyed that phase and just really going through the different phases with the kids as well. Yeah, it sometimes is a little bit scary, specifically with the first one, because you're not quite sure what to expect. And people can share their thoughts with you. You can read, you can attend classes, but at the end of the day, it's about you and your unit and what you make of it. But yes, I can clearly remember those days, and I'm so happy that our participants have shared with us where they are in terms of their journey. But we also need to think about when we are growing our families, where are we in terms of our financial journey? And very often the question here might come up, was this planned? Is it something that you really focused on and you've mapped out the journey and what the cost implications are going to be? And for some people, it might have been unplanned, but what a blessing. So I think it is important when we think about our financial journeys just to see what would be some of those planned events. Maybe that's the wedding and that celebration, or planning to purchase a bigger vehicle, or thinking about retirement and having a plan in place. And of course, today we're focusing on growing the family. Yes, there's also some unplanned events that could potentially have an impact on our finances, things that's very often outside of our control. For example, job loss or retrenchment. There's also divorce. There could be that wonderful blessing of a baby, but maybe you were not planning on that particular chapter to start right now. So yes, I think when we talk about our finances, we definitely do need to think about where do we find ourselves in our financial journey. And Maria and I, before the session started, tested Menti polling to make sure that it is working, and now it looks like it is again playing up a little bit. But Maria, maybe if Menti is not pulling up, we can just ask the question to our participants, please just take a look at the back end to see what was the next question that we were asking on Menti, and our attendees can then simply just reflect on that.
Absolutely. Menti does play tricks on us. So we wanted to know, is this your first child? Because a lot of people said they were expecting Liana. So we want to just find out, is this the first baby? Is it something that you have gone through before? So the answers there is yes and no. You can indicate one of the two. And if you are a little bit startled or troubled on the other side on Menti, please put it in the chat. I think some of these questions are quite generalized, so I will definitely pop them in the Q&A, Liana, as you are going through the content, so that you don't have to worry about what Menti is doing. It is sabotaging us. Luckily, you and I didn't say we were financial specialists and IT specialists as well. We just said financial specialists and moms. So here we are. We need to be taught how to use technology. That's the mom thing. That's a mom joke in my house. So it's fine. We'll carry it for this as well. I've got 5 people here that are saying yes, this is my first, and 2 people who are saying no. So congratulations to those that are saying yes, and still congratulations to those that are saying no. But I know the difference is with the 2 that are saying no, they'll tell you the novelty changes. It kind of dies down a little bit. But thank you so much for sharing.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your participation. So Menti is definitely not going to get the better of us. We are going to navigate through this, but I would like to maybe just take a couple of seconds to reflect. And in order to do so, I'm going to just go off screen to ensure that network is good. I would love to play this quick video, but please just give me the thumbs up if the sound and visual is pulling through. Let's watch.
A great parent is not the one who gives the most money. Not the one who gives the most toys. Not the one who gives the best place to live. A great parent is the one who gives attention. To be a great parent, all you need to do is be present with your child. Not give presents, be present. That's all kids really want. They want you to notice them, to be loved, to be wanted. The best parent is the one whose eyes light up when their child enters the room. The parent who makes a promise to love unconditionally. The parent who leads by example. Not by what you say, but by what you do. Kids will never pay attention to your words. They will always and only pay attention to your actions and your intentions. A great parent works on themselves. A great parent makes their own mind strong, knowing their kids will likely follow in their footsteps. Heal yourself. Make your own mind strong, so your children can see the clearest example of what a great life looks like. Setting a clear and strong example of what type of human being you want your kids to become starts with you. It's up to you to set the example of kindness and compassion toward others, to set the example of what it is like to be yourself, to set the example of living a magical life that you choose. That's what a great parent does. Set their child free. Allow them to be themselves. Allow them to make their own decisions. Live your life in such a way that when your kids think of kindness, compassion, strength, authenticity, and real joy, they think of you. A great parent knows not to allow anything in their life they don't want their children to reproduce in their lives. That includes toxic relationships. That includes bad habits. That includes making decisions based on fear. A great parent listens. They don't lecture. A great parent supports, never shames. A great parent guides and sets free. Being a parent is not a job, it's a privilege. Being a parent is not a burden, it's a blessing. They are always watching. What kind of role model will you be for your children?
And I'm going to pause the video right there. I think definitely some wonderful moments to think about. And I can definitely say over the last 22 years, that is something that I've realized they are always watching. So as much as we can say to the kids, do as I say, not as I do, I guess that's not the right lesson. So yes, money and relationships, whether it is within the household, can potentially have an impact when we go into different life stages. The life stage that I find myself in now is my oldest daughter completed her studies. She just recently graduated. The baby, as I call her, being in matric. Lots of decisions that we need to make around that. And of course, we don't always agree on the way forward. I might have a different idea. My husband might have a different idea. And ultimately, it's important to have that conversation around it and to say, what does the next year look like? Going into this new phase, what does it mean? How is it going to impact our household from a relationship perspective, but also, of course, how is it going to impact us financially? Because trust me, with each and every milestone that you achieve or every new chapter that you go into, it comes with different financial responsibilities. My mom always used to say, small children, small problem, bigger kids, bigger problems. And I can definitely start seeing that right now. But of course, it is important for us just to reflect for a little bit and think about no matter where you are in terms of your financial journey, it is about the decisions that you make. It is about the plan that you map out. And when we think about our financial journey, you've got to think about your daily, day-to-day management. So what is the implications of some of the financial decisions that you make right now in terms of your financial outcome and your financial future? And of course, to really be mindful around the income that's coming in, how you are spending that, how you are thinking about your financial future, and of course, the debt that you potentially might be looking at. So yes, when we are thinking about these wonderful things that might be coming our way, it is about budgeting for them. And no matter where you are in terms of your life stage, it is important to budget for those expenses. So Maria, we're going to this mentee question and asking our attendees to really just think a little bit about what would be some of those expenses that they need to consider, if I remember correctly. And I'm hoping that Mentee is going to pull through. There we go. So the question is, do you have a monthly budget for your growing family? Now, Maria, as we wait for some of these responses to come through, what was your kind of plan when you heard that you are expecting? Of course, there's the joy and it's wonderful, but then we start going into that planning phase. Did you work on a specific budget in preparation?
No, actually, no, because it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't my experience, it wasn't really planned out. I was focused on all the happy stuff and I didn't think logistically what's going to happen. But I mean, at some point or the other, you are actually forced to reckon with the budget because you realize very quickly that the things that you need for the baby are very specific and you need to be able to work around the numbers, and it's a lot. It's like you're starting off a human being from scratch, so it was quite interesting to actually start shopping for the baby. I think probably more than halfway through the pregnancy, then I had a budget. But at the beginning, I think I wasn't thinking of such things. So it was like, no, I'm just going with the flow. And then you start to learn how to create the budget as and when things happen. So I think that's why a conversation like this is important. So you can get insight from those who have done it before, to say, what's the easiest route in this particular case? Did you have a running budget, Liana?
So like you, Maria, for me, it felt I was just so caught up in that wonderful moment of this little being that's coming in. But yes, obviously, we started thinking about if I do now take maternity leave and there's UIF and there's a reduction in income, how would we potentially get through the month? We're a two-income household. So yes, upfront, I think we did try and save a little bit more in order to make up for the drop in income that there would potentially be, and of course also just covering some of those expenses. But I think once baby arrived, I was very fortunate with the baby showers. There was a lot of those items that does cost a lot of money. And maybe that warped my budget a little bit, because the first couple of months I thought, oh, this is not too bad. We're still coping. Everything is rosy. But then the formula and the nappies and the baby wipes from the baby shower started running out. And of course, we had to start replacing that. So we very soon realized how much all of that costs. And then you need to start thinking about, well, what happens when you go back to work? Is there going to be a nanny? Is there going to be daycare? Is it granny that's going to look after the child? And how are we going to plan for that? So I think it really is important just to be mindful and to keep all of those things into consideration in terms of what would our situation look like if there's a decline in income. How do we make provision for all of these expenses that will be coming our way? And really, no matter where you are in terms of your financial journey, everything starts with the budget. And this is where you need to have a clear indication. What is the income? What do we have to work with? What would be our current living expenses, and how could that potentially change? And what is the outcome of our budget? Are we breaking even? Are we seeing a shortfall? Are we seeing a surplus? Because remember, if the budget is already showing a bit of a shortfall or just breaking even, and we know that cost of living, of course, keeps on increasing, it is important then to really reflect and to see, in order for this to be as smooth, as simple, and not having financial pressure and stress, where would we potentially need to make certain adjustments, if any, of course, and not everybody is in the same situation. So my guidance would really be to those parents, when you are expecting, growing the family, going into a different life stage, it is about becoming aware what your current financial position is. And then, of course, to really be mindful, what are you spending your money on? Is it a need? Is it a want? Is it something that you could potentially cut back on? But also thinking, what does the plan for the future look like? And future for some people could be within the next 6 months, or for some people, future might be further down the line in the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. But ultimately, it comes down to really unpacking and understanding what would be some of the financial goals that we would like to achieve, and how are we going to achieve it? Does it mean that we need to cut back on spending? We've got to be really mindful in terms of our debt commitments, maybe minimizing some of that debt, and of course, having that peace of mind and that security in terms of financial health. Now, we found this quirky little video around those needs and those wants. And a little bit earlier on, as I mentioned, when looking at that budget and cutting back on your expenses, ask yourself, is it a need? Is it a want? How is this decision going to impact my financial outcome? Now, I quickly want to share this with you, so please just give me the thumbs up if you can hear.
Ponies. Oh, sweetie, you don't need more ponies. You want more ponies. See, a want is something you desire, but a need is a basic necessity like shelter or food or clothing. Oh gosh, I need wine. I only have 1 bottle left. Alexa, add wine to the grocery list.
Mom, you don't need wine, you want wine.
So I think that's quite quirky, and just identifying what is a need and what is a want. And yes, our kids will start calling us out. I remember one day very diligently doing my grocery shopping list, and my youngest, I think she was in primary school at the time, she said, Mom, I'll come to the grocery store with you. Give me your list. As you put the items in your basket, I'll tick them off for you. And I said, okay, that sounds like a plan. So we're in the grocery store, pushing the trolley, putting those items into the trolley, and not too long, she says to me, Mom, the bottom of your trolley is almost full. I said, yes. She said, but I haven't ticked anything off your list. You're being distracted. So yes, very often they do keep us on the straight and narrow. But it is about planning and how do we actually budget for those expenses. Maria, what would be your take in terms of if that is that wonderful surprise and that blessing in terms of expecting?
I think if you are surprised, the surprise babies, I think as soon as you find out, I think the best thing to do is start off on that particular budget. Like you're saying, Liana, explore the expense element of it to say, what can I do? And what are some of the things, that can help me? I think most of the time with surprise babies, and you find out that it's a surprise baby and a first time baby, the pressure is mounted from society to say, oh, the first baby gets everything. Everything for me doesn't have to be brand spanking new. You can start a savings pot. You can also tell your little tribe, which is family, friends, and those special people around you, about the baby, and let's see what you can put together in the next couple of months. And then I think just going forward, one of the other things I would definitely make sure is I don't get another surprise. Just make sure we go back to basics and make sure we don't get another surprise. But because it's already here, I think the best to do would be share with those around you. And then let's see what we can do together as a team.
Absolutely, Maria. And I want our attendees just to think a little bit about this. What was their personal experience when they heard that they were having a baby? Just reflect on those magical moments and what was the first thing that you did? How did you share the news? But also think about what were some of the concerns and the fears that you might have thought about. And I really think that when we start planning the arrival of this wonderful, wonderful baby, it is about clearly understanding, are we financially prepared? And I don't think we'll ever be financially prepared. Nobody could have prepared me 22 years ago of the expenses in terms of school fees and university and everything else that actually goes with that. So I think we're very fortunate to have this conversation today with the new parents so that we can plant the seed and they can start thinking about some of these expenses. But it is also important to think about what would be some of the upfront costs that we need to cover, those doctor's visits, the sonars, whether your medical aid is actually going to cover that. What would be some of the ongoing expenses that you need to look at? What would be the pre-delivery? What is the thinking? Is it going to be in hospital? Where is it going to be? And then, of course, really also thinking about that very important segment in terms of medical care or medical insurance. Think about when you are on maternity leave or parental leave, how would you be covering some of those expenses? So it's vitally important to almost have two budgets, I would say. You would have your budget, which needs to align with the baby budget and the expenses that you are expecting to cover there. But it is also very important just to build up that in case of emergency fund, because trust me, there's a lot of emergencies that could potentially come your way. So yes, we do need to think about the cost of being pregnant in South Africa. And there is some of the prenatal financial expectations. So think about those appointments. Please do take a look if you've got medical aid or medical insurance, what actually is covered. How much is that first appointment? When do you need to go for the follow-up appointment? And then, of course, towards the end, they become more frequent, and very often it's a lot more expensive than what we have actually participated. Then you need to also be mindful in terms of those medical expenses and, like we've mentioned, what will be covered by your medical aid. So have you already notified or spoken to your medical aid that you are expecting? Have you taken a look at what is actually covered under your current plan? Because we know very often if it's private, those consultations could be anything between 2,500, 2,700 for one particular visit. Maria, how did you experience this? I certainly, when I started going through this process, I thought, my goodness, I did not expect or anticipate the medical expenses to be as high as we experienced.
Yeah, I think it would definitely, if you've got medical aid, prenatal planning on medical aid, I found it to be a lot simpler. because of, I had a list of my gynaes that were within the medical aid rate, and, I had just the knowledge of it all. Look, at that particular time, I had a lot of information of that industry, so it was easy to do my research and just figure it out. But it was mind-blowing to see the bills, Liana, even though I wasn't paying for them, to just see the bills and how doctors basically bill for that. I think I have also like walked the journey of pregnancy with people who go through it via the public sector. And I think it is because it wasn't known to me at that time. I think in comparison, I thought maybe it wouldn't be easy or it's complicated. You definitely need to do your research as well in the public sector. But I do find that expecting moms do get support in that regard. It's unfortunate that timelines are longer, lines are longer, facilities are not easily available as in private, but although they are there, it's things that you have to research during the pregnancy. So bill-wise, I did have I don't want to say easy, but I was quite prepared in understanding the cost of having my baby, where I'm going to have it, how I'm going to have it, negotiating with my gynae and all the other professionals that come with it, and just understanding the standpoint of the actual day. Like you're saying on your slide there, am I going natural? Am I going, because the plan was to go natural, but then I had to go via a C-section because it was medically required. So those are the things that I was kind of learning as I'm going along. But because I had done my research and secured a hospital on my list and service providers that were on my list, I didn't come out of pocket. But those are the things that I just want to highlight for everybody, that the delivery cost can hit your pocket very hard if you don't do your legwork and find out which service providers can I use that will not make me pay out from my own pocket. And the planning ahead and getting authorization and ensuring that you are speaking to the right service provider about the right thing, so that when the claim comes, it doesn't get declined or anything like that. So yeah, it was very interesting, Liana.
Yeah, absolutely. So all of these wonderful decisions that we need to make around this time that you might find yourself in. So it's about communication, and always remember that you're not alone. Whether it is that you're speaking to a financial coach, or you're speaking to your benefits consultant or your medical aid, just get as much information as possible so that it doesn't stress you out. Make sure that this is part of your plan. And of course, your medical team will give you the guidance as to what would be best for you, going natural, the C-section, but just keeping in mind that there is different price tags to those as well. Now, when we take a look at the children growing up, anything from birth to around 18 years, we need to think about what would be some of those expenses that we need to cover. And of course, yes, the first couple of years is much easier, whether it is the child is going maybe to daycare or living with granny, or maybe there's a nanny that's going to take care of them. But we do need to think about the future as well. Thinking about school fees, thinking about university, how you actually plan and calculate all of those costs, because building into your budget, you need to be mindful of those daily expenses, what is needed. Think about what could be maybe every couple of weeks, those clinic visits, and find out whether that is being covered by your medical aid. And of course, also then thinking about the future. So yes, it is important to think about some of the unexpected costs that could potentially come your way as well. Now, I will never forget this day, and to this day, we are still arguing amongst ourselves whose fault it was, and I don't mind sharing with you. So my oldest, I remember the morning so clear, getting ready to go to work. At the time, we had a nanny coming in to take care of her during the day. And I remember grabbing my handbag, leaving for the office, and I saw her walking down the street. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to lock the door completely. I'm just going to close the door because my husband is downstairs and the little one was in a walking ring, and I saw the nanny coming up the pathway. So of course I went out, and literally within seconds, the little one pushed that security gate open with her walking ring, down a couple of stairs. She fell on her mouth, and the beautiful one tooth that was already sitting there pushed right into the gum. So that was, of course, a medical expense, unexpected, emergency, something that we didn't plan on. Lots of visits to a specialist. That she had to go into theatre immediately to have it removed. And then years and years thereafter of rebuilding and helping her, of course, have that beautiful smile. So unfortunately, these things do happen. So think about how you would cover some of those unexpected costs. We also need to obviously plan for the basics, the clothing, etc. But let's hear from our attendees on Menti, Maria. Our next question, and we're going to really get Menti to start here. But if you could maybe just read out the question in the meantime, so that we've got an idea as to what we would like feedback on. There we go. Have you estimated the cost of a new baby? We've got it there. So some of our participants are saying not yet. We're going to keep this question open and active. I'm wondering if anyone is going to say, yes, I've got a rough idea, or yes, I've got it all figured out. And you know what? You don't have to have it all figured out right now. We're on this journey. We're here to support you. Many of our participants are saying rough idea. Some are saying not yet. But Maria, let's give some guidance in terms of some of these expenses. So getting prepared, getting things started, what should we be looking at?
There's a lot to look at when we get things prepared for a new baby that's coming. We just spoke about doctors and medication and the hospital visit and things like that. I think we have definitely touched on that big expense, but there's then deciding on formula and food and nappies, now the brands and things like that. That is also very good to do your research in that regard. Sometimes baby might determine whatever it is that they need, the body will tell you, and you have to change those particular things. Where the baby will sleep, I don't think a lot of people think about as far as, oh, it's my baby, I will sleep with the baby, I'll have the baby in my hands. And you realize maybe I'm not such a great sleeper. Maybe I might need to have protective gear around my baby. Does that mean a crib? Does that mean like a baby mattress that's a little bit more elevated than your bed? So it will look different. It will look very different for each person depending on affordability and space and things like that. So explore some of those things before we get into it. People will write car seat or stroller, and then you find that you don't use these things until the baby has outgrown them. So look at your life. Are you a person who's generally traveling quite a bit, going to spaces, and then try and minimize the cost around those particular things as well. And the one that nobody wants to look forward to, Liana, or think about, when I go back to work, what is the plan with the baby? I think my biggest advice would be think about that very early on, so that you can also integrate things like maybe a nanny coming in while you're still on mat leave, or maybe if you're going to do a daycare, maybe trying it out while you're still at home and in close proximity to fetching the baby if anything happens or if you feel any discomfort. So those are some of the things that we need to look out for. Liana's going to get into some of them in depth, but I really did want you to think about what will happen childcare wise when you have to go back to the workplace.
Absolutely, Maria. So thank you for planting that seed. And when I look at this particular slide, formula, food, nappies, my goodness, I do remember those days. And yes, the first couple of months was very easy because of the baby shower gifts. But then I remember how frequently we had to go and buy nappies. And like you've mentioned, you might not know which formula is going to be best. And yes, you might even be thinking of breastfeeding, and that's fantastic. I think that was one of the most magical moments for me as well with both of my kids. But obviously, when you start working again, it becomes quite tricky. And you then have to start looking at, well, what formula is going to work best? And maybe it takes you a good couple of months to figure that out, because there might be allergic reactions, or you're trying what is working best with the baby. when we think about food, you might think, how much can this little body actually consume? But it is important to think about what's going to work best. I also remember almost every Saturday, I would prepare for the week, and I would boil vegetables and put in a little bit of meat and do a little bit of that and put it all in these little containers so that it's all ready when they started eating solids. But yes, it does take a little bit of planning. And yeah, these days it's a lot more convenient. When I walk in the grocery store, I see that there's already pre-prepared vegetables and pre-prepared meals that you can really just buy, but that comes at a price. So just be careful if you do buy those pre-prepared food. How much is it costing you per helping? Because you often find you might open that food and they take 2 bites and then they don't want it anymore. And it's got a shelf life. You can't actually pop it back into the fridge. You've got to then be mindful that it doesn't go off. So it really is important just to plan exactly how much it's going to cost, what route are you going to follow, do the most cost-effective way, because it does add up at the end of the day. Many years ago, obviously, we didn't have disposable nappies. I think when my mom had me and my brother, it was material or fabric nappies. And Maria, I don't know if you've seen those images where maybe it was washing day and the washing line would be filled with these white nappies. Yes. That's been washed and they've gone into the Steri nappy container. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
But that's absolutely.
Yeah. And I think to this day, people still follow that route. And yes, it might still be more cost effective, but I think for many people, it's become a convenience. It's easier just to buy the disposable nappies. So it really is about your personal preference and what it is that you want to do, what's working for you, what's working for baby, what does your bank balance say at the end of the day. But it's not just about formula food and nappies. We also need to be mindful of some of the important documents that is needed. And of course, once baby has been born, the birth needs to be registered within 30 days. And usually the hospital will support and help you with this. There's also people that will help you get the birth certificate. But then it's your responsibility to make sure that you add baby to medical aid. If you are currently on medical aid or on medical insurance, make sure that you notify them as quickly as possible. If you are going to rely on UIF, remember to get the necessary UIF documents from your HR department, and remember to, of course, submit that. I must be honest, I've not heard success stories around UIF. I think these days it's even more trickier to get this. Maria, what is your take on UIF, within your circle or with your friends or family or even clients? Is it very successful?
So I think personally, I've never had to use UIF with my pregnancies because I was getting full compensation while on maternity leave. But I have heard, the disappointment, I think, for a lot of people is finding out that you're not going to get your full salary. I think people then, apply with the thought that it is replacing my income. It's not replacing your whole income. It's replacing a percentage of it. So I think that shortfall kind of sends people, a little aback. And then also just the process of the registration with it, the timing of it is very specific. If you are going to claim from it, then your payroll needs to have finalized paperwork and have taken you off of the system by a certain time. And then you communicating on time when you're coming back, Liana, so that the payroll system can upload you again so you can make it on time for the salary run in the first month that you are back. So it does have, an implication when it comes to UIF. So my guidance would be, please find out as early as possible what it is you need to do. Don't leave things for the last minute. Find out as early as possible. Do reminders for yourself in your calendar for when you need to submit paperwork, when you need to check your payroll, when you need to go to UIF, and all of those things. But also, just make sure in the months that you're not getting full salary because UIF doesn't pay you 100%, you've adjusted the budgeting numbers and figuring out what it is you need to do to stay afloat while you are at home and earning that capped salary.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, also remember to update things like your beneficiary nomination forms. And if you've got your will in place, remember to update the information there. Very, very important. So it's not just about the doctor's visits before baby arrive. You also need to think about those doctor's visits after baby arrived. And of course, those vaccinations. You need to check what is covered under your medical aid. How often do you need to go? And of course, how much this is going to cost, because we don't want to miss those very, very important clinic visits and to record those milestones. Now, Maria touched very briefly on the importance of getting that car seat or a stroller. And of course, this is also something that I would say, yes, as much as we want to plan and we want to buy these expensive and big items up front, but you might not even need it. How often do we see the baby rooms stacked with all of the items that they could potentially need, and you might then not use them, or they outgrow them before you could actually use it. And we are exposed to so much. Looking in the baby shops online, there's just so many items, but I would definitely recommend from experience, buy the necessities. Yes, if you've got your own vehicle and you are traveling, make sure that there's a car seat. That's not negotiable. You want a very good quality one, but maybe use something that can use the toddler or the baby can use up until toddler stage. That can extend, and maybe when you get to the toddler phase, they go into those booster seats. And when you buy the stroller, just ask yourself, what is the purpose of the stroller? Is it that maybe you love exercising, you're a jogger, and you want to take baby out when you do a run? Or is it really just when you go to the grocery store? Or how often will you actually use it? Is it really necessary for top of the range and most expensive? Or could you maybe use a pre-loved item as well? I think this was for me one of the most difficult decisions, going back to work, thinking about who is going to take care of little ones. So with my first baby, I was fortunate enough, I was home for about 7 months. I took my full maternity leave, I took annual leave, and I then went back and she went to a daycare that was very close to us. With the second one, it was different. After 4 months, I needed to go back, and I just couldn't imagine taking this little baby at 4 months and dropping her off somewhere. So we then had made the decision of having the nanny coming in. So you really need to think about this, what is going to be best for you. But once again, also, that is an expense that need to be factored into your budget. And sure, these days, when I listen to some of the moms with little kids, it almost feels like daycare could be more expensive than actual primary school. Maria, have you noticed that, or have you heard any of those rumors?
I have definitely noticed that, Liana. I have. So there's so much for us to kind of plan around and think about. And then when you hear such things, I think the panic kind of comes in. But it is very important for us to keep cool, keep our heads, and figure out what it is we're going to do and what is our next move. Now, also, I don't know, Liana. I think it also depends on what kind of preference or system you have going in terms of or structure you want in terms of child minding and education, because there are a lot of options that are out there these days that are based on personal preference. So yeah, I think it is something to look into.
Absolutely. And we can see from the Menti responses, many of our participants are also thinking about childcare education, the day-to-day expenses. So there's lots of responses coming in. And yes, of course, that is something that we need to be mindful of. But really, when you start budgeting, we're sharing with you a basic idea. Think about the essentials that you would need. And your essentials starting out would be your diapers, your wipes, your cribs, your car seats. Think about buying in bulk if you see that there's certain specials, but also be mindful of sizes so that you don't sit with maybe a lot of newborn and you're not going to use them, because they do grow out of them quite quickly. So you can definitely start looking at sales and clearance sales and think about pre-owned items that you could potentially use. Make use of your loyalty program. Specifically, I'm thinking like your Clicks Club card, your Dis-Chem loyalty cards. Build up those rewards, spend it then on those essential items. And of course, maybe think about where you could potentially do it yourself, like the baby food, and what can you potentially repurpose. But it is important also just to see how much will my medical aid increase when I actually add baby to my medical aid, because remember, that will have an impact on your bottom line and your net income as well. And clearly understand what would be the benefits that's available to you. So please do reach out, speak to a benefits consultant so that they can help you and guide you. Don't make a decision based on purely, this is the cheapest or the most affordable. You also need to look at what will it actually cover at the end of the day. So make sure that you understand all of the different medical aid linked to your particular company. And also, I think very important these days is to understand what type of leave benefits do you have, parental benefits, how many days would you qualify for, that question around UIF coming up again, and of course, understanding the impact of baby on your budget and of course your medical expenses. We've really touched on the importance of making that decision of childcare options. Is it going to be daycare, nanny? Is it family support? You really just have to ask yourself in terms of this, what works for you? And how is this going to impact the bottom line? At the end of the day, it is about the saving tips and the strategies and the importance of planning for the future. Whether it is that in case of emergency, whether it is an educational policy, can you potentially lay by certain items if you can't afford it right now? Please don't get yourself into debt because you're wanting to buy the latest and the greatest items. Be very mindful because expenses will increase once baby is there. If you're feeling stuck and you need a little bit of guidance, please do reach out and speak to a financial coach who can analyze your budget, really take a look at where do you need to make certain changes. But Maria, we're always about communication and how important communication is. Within the household, would you say that both parents need to be on the same page? And we know very often the family dynamic might be different. They might be a couple or they might be co-parenting, but why is communication so important?
It's very important, Liana, because at some point, you figure out that maybe you and this person don't have the same idea or want the same things. And I think when the baby is there, it's a little bit too late to try and figure out things like, what do you want? What do I not want? What do you like? I think those are conversations that we need to have right from the beginning so we can figure out how to move forward together. It's important that when you are co-parenting with somebody to be on the same page. It's important for you guys to always remain, connected, the lines of communication open, to have the same goal, Liana, and also to just support each other. It might not mean that you agree with each other's point of view, but I think at the end of the day, you just need to figure out what is best for the child. So how do you work out money matters with somebody else who you are in a relationship with or who you are just co-parenting with? What is it that you need to do or not do when it comes to this? And I think for me, the biggest tip would be, it's not about ego. It's not about any of these things. It's really about the best thing for the child. So I'm going to run through some of the do's and don'ts really quickly. But the first thing is, I think, have rules that are set in place so that we're not like chopping and changing things along the way. Agree on boundaries. Like I said, we're not always going to agree, but if we can agree where we meet and where we set boundaries, that will help. Have lines of communication open. Even if the parent is now your ex, You guys have to keep baby in mind, commit to positive communication, and keep each other updated. Just information sharing. One of the things I definitely wouldn't suggest that you do is work from a manipulative stance, maybe guilt tripping people or manipulating them into thinking about what it is that, you should be doing, or let's go with my thing. I think it's very important to always not be a burden on the baby, but just try and be somebody who helps this child grow. Don't accuse each other. Don't be in competition. Who can do better? I can afford a lot more than you, those kind of things. So please don't get into that spiral. Yeah.
Absolutely, Maria. Thank you for sharing some of those tips. I think it's so important. And of course, we will be sharing the slide deck so that you can really take a look and a deep dive into some of these pointers. But I think discussing the expectations are so vitally important, having those regular check-ins like you've mentioned, and of course, educate yourself. This is new for both parents potentially. So it is important to really share information. What can you expect? What are your fears? What are your dreams? What are your expectations? But to have that plan in place, whether it is that birth plan, the parenting plan, and yes, as much as we could map out all of this up front, it's not to say that it is going to work out as we actually planned it, and we adjust the plan as we go ahead. But it is also important to have shared responsibilities. Not everything should lie and sit with the one particular parent. So I think upfront discuss those night feeds, if there's a bottle and formula or change of nappies, will you be assisting? It shouldn't just necessarily sit with one particular person. And that's why it's so important to make sure that you are on the same page as your partner. Have that emotional connection. If you feel that there's a bit of a disconnect and you're not on the same page, have a look and see what guidance is available. And remember, through Lyra, you can also dial in and speak to a counselor, someone that can support you when you are going through some of these challenges. And very often, for the mom, it does feel a little bit lonely. Baby is there, that's fantastic, it's wonderful. The partner might be going off to work, or the husband, family is not around. Very often, mom is home alone with the little one, and it does get a little bit overwhelming from time to time. So we really just want to encourage you to make use of the resources that's available. Who is your network? Who is in your tribe? If you feel that things are getting too much for you, who can you call? Is it maybe a parent, a mom, a sister, a sibling, a close friend, someone that you trust, that's not going to judge, and you can, expose all of your fears, and they're there to support you? I think it is vitally important. Now, I know that we almost need to start wrapping up, but we do want to just create awareness around the long-term financial plan. Remember, the will is vitally important. When there's minor kids now, make sure that you stipulate who would be the guardian of the child if both biological parents should pass away. Make sure that the will make provision for a testamentary trust. Make sure that there's life cover. Who is the beneficiaries? What is the purpose of the life cover? Is it to leave a legacy? Is it to help with education? And then, of course, connect with a financial advisor to see what is the most effective way to start planning for education, because that definitely is one of the most expensive items that you will look at in the development and growth of your child. And remember to build that in case of emergency fund. Now, Maria, as we wait for this Menti, I'm going to continue talking, because I know that we've got so much information that we wanted to share in the session, and I think that it is all relevant. And before we, of course, wrap up today, I do just want to touch on the cost of education and going forward. So I'm just going to activate this question. And it is around, do you currently have life insurance? I would like our participants to think about this. And this is, of course, also taking a look at your benefits through your current employer, whether it is group risk cover. And our next Menti question, while they are voting for that one, then is around, if I'm not mistaken, whether they have a thought about the will and the updating of the will, which is also very, very important, and we need to create awareness. And then, of course, the question around, are you familiar with the leave dates that's available within your company? And of course, also the UIF process. But Maria, I think we're going to maybe wrap up in the next 2 to 3 minutes, but I think educational fees are so very important to be mindful of, and you need to start thinking about, yes, we spoke about that daycare, going into primary, going into high school, going into further education. What guidance or insights can you potentially share in terms of educational fees?
Thank you, Liana. I think with education, again, communication, personal choice, preferences of each party who is raising the child, but also ultimately what will determine where we go is our income and affordability as well. I think many parents that I've talked to want the best for their children, and then we want to be able to figure out how to provide the best. The options that are out there, Liana, would be public schools, private schools, and then there's now the homeschooling element that has come in as well. So talk through those things first and figure out, what does the pocket say and what does the preference say? Because I may prefer a private school, but can I afford one is the question. And when we are talking affordability, remember that's not going to be a permanent thing. As you grow in the workforce, you grow in your career and education and everything, you can secure an income that will cater for some of these things that we've highlighted, but definitely have a conversation. Am I going public, private? Which way am I going? Then start doing your research. According to your budget and what you have available, start looking for schools around that price tag. And then you start then creating short lists and maybe visiting potential schools. But again, this part of it would be determined more by affordability than what it is that we desire. Just a piece of advice as well, while you are looking for schools and you're doing your homework, please look out for things like bursaries and scholarships and things like that that we don't often look into. We just see the price tag and we write things off. Go into schools' websites and do school tours and figure out, because some of them have foundation within their own structures that a lot of people don't look into. Some sort of subsidization that happens in certain schools. We need to do our research. So please do your research and let's take it from there.
Absolutely, Maria. Thank you so much. And as we wrap up, I'm going to ask you to please just pop that contact me link in the meeting chat so that our attendees can click on the link and, of course, reach out and speak to a financial coach. We definitely don't want you to leave the session feeling overwhelmed. It is around creating awareness where you are currently in terms of your financial journey, but also to go into this level-headed and to have a plan, thinking about your day-to-day expenses, not forgetting about the financial future, because let me tell you, in my situation, 22 years go by very, very quickly. And if I reflect back now on my journey with my kids, I can definitely say that since they hit high school and then wrapping up that last couple of years going into university has had the biggest financial impact on our household, because as much as you can plan, life happens. And there might be situations where you thought you had a plan and you're going to map it all out beautifully, but then something else happens and you get derailed and you've got to go back to the plan. And that's okay. We are resilient. So that's what we do. But at least have some kind of idea and direction in terms of where you are going, what you are preparing for, so that it is really a wonderful life story and a beautiful, beautiful journey, and not that of a stressful one. I think that's where we're going to wrap it up. We've already kept everybody a couple of minutes longer than we anticipated. We hope that you found the session insightful. Please do keep an eye out for the recording from the Lira team, and of course the slide deck where you can go and view it on the portal. And remember to reach out and speak to a financial coach. It is completely confidential. It's at no cost to you, and we're here to help you every step of the way. Maria, thank you so much for being on the line with me and for sharing your insights. This was now a much more light-hearted type of session, and I really enjoyed doing it with you. Thank you so much for being on the line.
Thank you so much, Liana. It was very, very good to do this session. I enjoyed your overview and outlook as well, and your experience as a mom. I take a lot from it. So thank you for inviting me. Thank you to all the colleagues that logged on and shared what is currently going on in their life and what they are doing and who they're expecting and all the plans that they have in the future. Thank you guys for your time.
Awesome. We wish you all a wonderful, wonderful, blessed day further. Stay healthy, stay safe, and of course, stay blessed until we see each other again. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.